Before using any machine in the shop, you should read and understand the owner's manuals. All right, this is our edge sander. It is a long belt on a machine that will allow us to sand longer surfaces of material. So let's take a look at this one a little bit closer. So we have this table here, and this table you'll notice is at a slight angle. And the reason for that angle is when we're working with our workpiece that we're not using just one section of the belt and wearing that thin. So this will allow us to use the whole surface of the belt to sand the workpiece. It's going to keep our workpiece cooler so it doesn't burn, and it's going to keep the sandpaper in better condition because we're using more surface area. Okay, if you notice up top here, there's a little arrow indicating the direction of travel, so the belt is going to be spinning this direction. If there were anywhere to stand or hazardous areas when using this, that's going to be back here by the dust hose. Okay, that's going to be the direction that this would shoot any workpiece off of the table. We're going to take a look with our workpiece here. When we grab our workpiece, we're going to start by bringing the workpiece up against this black stop. We're going to very lightly bring it in. We're going to sand up and down the belt. When you're done sanding, you're going to return to that starting point, this little fence, and then you're going to remove it from the belt. Okay, so we've got this miter track like we have on most of our machines. That miter track is our reference point for the 4-inch margin of safety. So our hand should not be over this miter track. Now, if you're sanding something small, this probably is not the machine you should be using. For example, if we have a board like this, we have very little surface area against the fence and against the belt, and it's going to want to pull it and grab it out of our hands, most likely shooting it out of your hands, which could cause the wood to cut or splinter you on the way by. If we go like this, our hands have to be super close. The alternative is to use a push block. And when we put a push block on there, you can see there's, again, not a lot of surface area. We're probably going to end up pulling that away from the belt and not having a 90-degree edge. So really, this machine is for larger pieces of material. Down here on the end, we've got this little auxiliary table, and what that's going to allow us to do is also sand some inside radiuses like we just did on the other machine. The inside radius here, this doesn't oscillate, so if we stay in one spot too long, our material is going to heat up and we are going to get some burn marks on there and probably damage the belt. So we want to bring it in, very light pressure. You would do your sanding and then remove it from the belt. Okay, so we have two options, flat sanding and doing some inside radiuses here. We do want to make sure the dust system is hooked up, so we should make sure the dust port is hooked up down here. If we're mainly doing the inside radiuses, sometimes we'll move the dust hose down here so it collects more of that powder, so we're not breathing in so much dust. So down here in front of the machine is where the on-off switch is. Before we do that, we need to refer to the warning label on the machine and read that to know what we should and shouldn't do while using this machine. Before turning on the machine, we also need to check the power cord to make sure there's no rips or tears in the outside protective layer. Make sure everything looks good and that all the prongs are needed on the end of the plug. So if there's a spot for 3 prongs, we need to make sure all 3 are there. So we can plug this in and then we'll turn the machine on. And so we'll just make sure the cord is out of the way of the belt so we're not to get pinched between the table and the belt. So we've got that looped around the back, that's good. Now we'll come over here, we'll turn it on, let it get to full speed, and then we're going to bring it in and do our sanding. The biggest hazard when working with sanders is going to be the dust that we have to breathe. We also maybe have some areas that could cause pinch points, where if our finger were to get caught in there, it would pinch and could tear off some skin. And the sandpaper itself is abrasive, so you're going to get quite the road rash on your skin if you touch the moving abrasive pad. So that's why, again, we need to keep a 4-inch margin of safety from any pinch points, blades, knives, or cutters. So when we're sanding longer boards like this, one thing I notice, or we're going to have a problem with, is if we don't have a line to follow, we're not going to realize how much pressure maybe you're putting on the front side or putting on the back side when sanding. You should have a nice even pressure, but sometimes you push a little harder one direction or the other. So we do need that line to follow on good pieces. Now, if you have a board like this and maybe you just need a 1/16 of an inch cut off from the side, you're going to be better to go to one of the table saws and cut this to the size you need. Let's say it's 10 inches, and right now this board's 10 and a 1/16. You would set the fence to 10 inches and have that 1/16 be on your waist side. That's going to keep these two sides nice and parallel. When we start sanding, a lot of times what we see is that things don't stay nice and parallel. So we've got a gap here and a gap down here, and it's touching in the middle. So we didn't keep that nice and even as we've been sanding with this board. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that when you're taking off little bits of material, the sander may not be the best option, especially when you have a bigger board. This is going to be for something that maybe you have some odd or unique shape that you can't simply go to the table saw and cut. So maybe this has some angles on there. It's already been cut and now we can't line it back up, but we need to match it to another piece. Then maybe we could come over here and sand the two parts that have angles to match each other. If you have any questions on the edge sander, please talk to your instructor so you can get those issues worked out so that you're comfortable and knowledgeable in using the sander safely.